In December of 1937, in the captured city of Nanking, Japanese officers lined up women in the streets. They brought out cameras and photographed what they did to them. But these weren't images meant to document a crime. They were trophies. The officers smiled. They posed next to the bodies. And here is the detail that should make your blood run cold. This wasn't the chaos of war, not a few soldiers losing control. This was ordered. This was strategy, documented in official reports. But that's not the part of the story that will keep you awake tonight. Because what these photographs reveal is a truth that governments, historians, and militaries have tried to bury for centuries. The systematic violation and public execution of women wasn't a terrible crime that happened during conflicts. It was the conflict itself. It was a weapon, as calculated as a bombing raid, as strategic as cutting an enemy's supply lines. And it is still being used right now. Before this story is over, you will see the evidence that fundamentally changes how we understand the very nature of warfare. We will uncover the ancient Roman military manual that explicitly describes sexual violence, a tactical method to break an enemy's morale. We will unearth the execution techniques designed specifically to maximize public humiliation, spreading terror faster than any army could march. And you will see proof that every major army in modern history, Allied, Axis, Soviet, and American-backed forces has used this weapon. There are no exceptions. What you are about to learn is something they do not teach in any history class. It is the weapon hidden in plain sight. Picture a map of human civilization. Now, imagine a light for every conflict where systematic sexual violence was documented not as an atrocity, but as military strategy. A light for ancient Rome, for medieval Europe, the colonial Americas, World War II, both theaters, Korea, Vietnam, Bangladesh, Bosnia, Rwanda, Congo, Darfur, Syria, Ukraine. You see, wartime sexual violence and collateral damage. It is not the regrettable act of drunken soldiers or a consequence of the fog of war. Military theorists across centuries have written about it as a tactical advantage. Sun Tzu may not have included it in The Art of War, but Roman generals discussed it openly. Ottoman strategists documented it. Japanese officers photographed it. And this matters, right now, because the United Nations is currently monitoring more than 20 active conflicts where this exact weapon is being deployed. Not 20 isolated incidents, 20 entire conflict zones. To understand why this weapon is so effective, you need to understand the twisted military logic behind it, and that logic was perfected 2,000 years ago by the most efficient and ruthless war machine in human history. The Roman Empire didn't just conquer territory. They erased civilizations, and they wrote down exactly how they did it. In their histories, they detailed the psychology of conquest, of how to break an enemy without firing a single shot. Open any translation of Livy's History of Rome. You'll find the founding myth of the city, the story of the rape of the Sabine women, and the Romans didn't tell it as a tragedy. They told it as strategy. The text reads, "The young Romans, at a given signal, rushed to seize the daughters of their neighbors." Notice that language, at a given signal. This was not chaos. It was not impulse. It was a coordinated military operation. But here is what your history teacher never mentioned. Roman military commanders wrote about this openly. The logic was terrifyingly simple. You could defeat an enemy army in battle, and they would regroup, rebuild, and come back for revenge. Their honor would demand it. But if you violate their women publicly, if you force pregnancies, their entire social structure collapses. Those children cannot claim their father's lineage. The family line is broken. The community's genetic continuity is severed. You don't just defeat the army, you delete their future. It wasn't about gratification, it was about identity annihilation. Roman military theory described it as a conquest of culture itself. You didn't just take their land, you absorbed their people by making them carry Roman children. It was a psychological masterstroke. An enemy could build walls, forge weapons, and trained soldiers, they could be ready to die fighting. But the Romans attacked something that could not be defended with a sword. They attacked a people's culture, their bloodline, their very future. It was a pattern of violation, forced pregnancy, and public display, a formula for erasure, and it worked. The Roman Empire conquered 3 continents and lasted 1,000 years. Other military powers watched. They learned. They copied. Rome fell in for 76 AD, but its playbook on psychological warfare did not. I know this history is incredibly dark. If you're still watching, it's because you are someone who wants to understand the brutal truths that official histories try to bury. Real history, and clean. It's not simple stories of good guys versus bad guys. Make sure you're subscribed, because we uncover the real, raw, and often terrifying stories that shaped our world, the things they don't want you to know. 1,461 years after the fall of Rome, in 1937, one army would take this ancient strategy and industrialize it. What the Japanese Imperial Army did in Nanking over 6 weeks still ranks as one of the most monstrous atrocities in human history, and they documented everything. We have the photographs, we have the diaries, we have the tribunal records, but what you think you know about Nanking is only half the story. The popular narrative frames it as a unique act of barbarism, specific to one army, one culture, one war. That narrative is a comfortable lie. Because the Allied powers, who prosecuted the Japanese for these crimes, the very men who called them inhumane and barbaric, were about to oversee the exact same thing on an even larger scale. The liberation of Europe should have been a moment of pure justice. Instead, for millions of women, it became a living hell, and your history textbook probably never even mentioned it.